What's up, Vikings fans? This is Chris Corso here with another NFL Insider. It's Adam Caplan of Sirius XM Radio, long time doing stuff with ESPN. So who better to go through the Vikings offseason and navigate through these wild times than Adam? So thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
You got it, my friend, and yeah, it's good to be with you and with what we have going on in the world. It's good to talk about football. So your Vikings certainly have had an interesting offseason. It's kind of been what I thought because of the cap situation. I knew it was going to be tight. A lot of guys, not a lot, but some players are going to have to leave. They had to sort of manage the cap, and Rob Brzezinski does it just as well, if not better than everyone else. They kept the players they really wanted to keep. They'll keep tabs on some of the guys who are still out there. But the bottom line is this roster is really good that Rick Spielman has built.
So Rick Spielman and Rob Brzezinski, two guys you know very well, covering the NFL for whatever it's been, 25, 30 years now. What does it say about the cap wizard, Rob Brzezinski, who really had to make some moves this offseason to stay under the cap and make some tough decisions, getting rid of guys like Linval Joseph and Xavier Rhodes, who have really just been such big contributors on the Vikings defense as of late?
Yeah, there's a saying in the National Football League, you never want to wait till it's too late to move on from a player, and that's kind of what the Vikings did there. They made a decision they were not going to re-sign Linval, even though they could have brought him back at a different salary cap number to salary. They decided to move on. They brought in Michael Pierce, formerly, who's by the way, he's a massive guy. He's a massive tackle, but I would have to tell you, I met Linval at the Super Bowl. He might be the biggest human being I've ever seen. He's a monster. Great player. He really is a terrific player. Great career he's had, and obviously he is not going to be back, but Shamar Stephen is still there. Michael Pierce, who I mentioned. Geno Hunter's still there. This is an area, though, for depth-wise, they have some challenges. Obviously, with Griffin, as expected, opting out of his contract. He's still not signed. You never say never with him coming back. But as we head into the draft season, which is now really just about 2 weeks away, to me, it's got to be defensive line depth. That to me, is a challenge for them, particularly at the defensive end position. They've got to address it, receiver position, and they've got a couple other challenges.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Michael Pierce. There's a video of him like squatting like 900 pounds, which Vikings fans have really
there you go.
Yeah. See. But he's not a household name. So I really want to get your opinion on Michael Pierce. We did speak with the Ravens, and they gave us some a good scouting report on him as a person and what he does in the run game. The Ravens had the top 5 rushing defense 4 of the last 5 seasons. So what does Michael Pierce bring to the Vikings?
Yeah, Michael Pierce is a short, squatty guy. He's 6 foot even, but really talented. 325, 330. I've been at Ravens training camp and I've seen him up close. He's massive in terms of legs and just girth, and he's a run guy, so he's going to help them in that area where they could have been better last season. I think that's clearly part of it. Again, you're getting younger with him over Joseph. I get that. I get why they're doing that. Then you mentioned, of course, Xavier Rhodes. Xavier Rhodes, at one point, old number 29, was one of the top 5 corners in the league. He's no longer that player. The Colts they brought him in on a 1-year deal, a very team-friendly deal, because Xavier was released. He was not coming off of a good season. I know, talking to the Vikings, they love Holton Hill. We know about the off-the-field stuff, but I'll tell you this, very coachable kid. He's just got to take care of himself off the field. You know about Mike Hughes. So they'll obviously take a look at those kids. Cornerback is clearly a position I think they could address in the draft with. It's unbelievable. 5 picks in the first 3 rounds. What do they have, 12 picks overall, something like that?
That is right. And we know Rick Spielman likes to trade up and down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And by the way, having those 2 first-rounders, which you mentioned, they have the flexibility to trade back or up. Whatever happens sort of before them, then they'll make a decision on what they want to do.
Yeah, we're going to get to the draft a little later because I know you are an expert at some of the positions that we're looking at. But first, I want to recap the trading Stephon Diggs to the Buffalo Bills. Probably the biggest. There's been a lot of big headlines from the Vikings here, but the biggest one was trading Stephon Diggs to the Buffalo Bills and getting that first-round pick, which is probably as important of a piece as you can get for Rick Spielman. So talk about the haul that the Vikings got from the Buffalo Bills and then what you thought of the trade. I mean, we lost one of our top explosive playmakers.
You know, it's interesting. When I had heard that he might be moved, and I still was surprised, but I know what happened there. The Vikings really didn't want to move him. they had to be sort of bowled over. They'd have to get an incredible offer from the Bills, and my God, did they get? They got. I'm going to be, and I have a ton of respect for the Bills, and I think Diggs will be really good for them. But they paid a king's ransom. Diggs is not 6'3". He's 5'11". He's a terrific player. We know what happened last year when he was not happy. We don't need to rehash that stuff. But the fact of the matter is, the Vikings got incredible value, but he is also 26 turns 27. You're right. It leaves a hole there, but it's one of these trades. If you and I were running the team, we're making this trade. You can't turn this one down. That's kind of, I think, based on the intel that I have, that's kind of where the Vikings were. They're like, how in the world do we turn this down? And that's kind of what happened.
Hey, it's good to hear that input from an outsider like yourself. But the player that the Vikings did add was Sharpe, who's a small school kid. He actually went to my alma mater, and I got to see him play over there.
UMass, so I know, huh?
Yeah, UMass. That's right.
Yeah.
I've seen the things that this guy can do. I think he was like the sole reason why UMass went from the FCS to the FBS in football when he was there. But what does a guy like Sharpe? What can he add to the Vikings roster? He's not that's like really huge name as well, but he's a playmaker. He's an explosive guy.
All right, so I'll give you a little bit of intel here. So I remember talking to John Robinson, the Titans general manager, who does a really good job. He loved Sharpe for the draft. I just remember hearing about him. John told me when I went to their training camp, Sharpe's rookie year, he's going to make our team. He's going to get in rotation. That's exactly what happened. He could play special teams. He's a backup receiver. He's not a fast guy. He's a possession receiver. They need speed and probably size if they can get it, opposite Thielen. Because right now, if you and I sat down and ranked their needs, you can make the argument that receiver's number 1, defensive end's number 2, corner's probably number 3. We could go through the whole thing. We don't have time to go through the whole thing, but that's pretty much off the top of my head. And now I'd say to you, we still need speed and size opposite Thielen. So Thielen's a terrific football player. Sharpe is not a speed guy. He's not going to draw double teams. Sharpe is a good guy to have because he's going to do what the coaches want. He's a possession receiver, but he's a backup. It's a fine bargain signing. That's what it was. But again, he's a possession receiver and he's a backup, but he'll be good in that role.
The other big headline from the Vikings was extending quarterback Kirk Cousins. Obviously, we know the salary cap situation that the Vikings are in. So if you could kind of explain what the Vikings did there and what you thought of that move.
Yeah, they were coming up on the final year of his deal, so they decided to do it early. They could have waited, but they did it early. And they got a little bit of relief. But the bottom line is the contract's phenomenal. It's really one of the Kirk Cousins. I could go back to the 2012 Senior Bowl. I'll never forget it. Some certain things that I've been in the Senior Bowl now 20 years. There's certain things I remember. I remember he had an incredible week. And remember now, this is when the Redskins drafted him, that they had Robert Griffin III as a first rounder, and they had Kirk in the 4th round. And they dinged Mike Shanahan. What are you thinking? Why would you draft this guy? Well, you never pass up on a guy who's of value at the quarterback position. I don't care how many you have. And that's why some teams succeed and that's why some teams fail. They don't understand the quarterback position. But the Vikings did. Kirk has been a good story of development for them. He's not a superstar quarterback, but he is called what we call a winning quarterback. You can win with him. And if they shore up a couple spots for the draft, they're going to be right back to where Zim wants them and Rick Spiel wants them. And Kirk is going to be that guy. And Sean Mannion, I want to talk about him for a second. He is known as a good backup quarterback. A lot of quarterback coaches I know like this kid. Yep. He's a backup quarterback, and I like it. Rick Spielman, once again, understands the quarterback landscape better than most.
So before we get into the draft, the last thing I'm going to say is if you could grade the Vikings free agency period A through F, what would you grade it and why?
All right. One thing I try to explain to fans is that free agency is not just about signing other players from other teams. It's re-signing your players, extending contracts. Kirk Cousins is part of that. Yes, he wasn't a free agent, but they're doing this now, so he's not a part of free agency in the future. So that counts. Griffin used his opt-out on his contract, so I get that part of it. I think it's a B minus. Like, folks, this is a roster where they didn't need to do very much. We just outlined a couple minutes ago some of the challenges that they have for the draft where they have to hit, where they have to supplement the roster. But I would say it's a B, B minus. I don't know what people are expecting. Free agency is not the way that you win. You win through the draft and you supplement for free agency. The Eagles, the Patriots, the Vikings, several other teams over the years. I think that that's the way you do it. There's not one way to do it, but the smart teams know how to balance it, and that's how you win.
Adam Caplan, you are on the clock for the Minnesota Vikings with the number 22 and number 25 pick. Who are you taking with those two picks? Kind of try to estimate what players will be available, but I want to hear the position group and who you're going to take depending on mock drafts and things like that. Who you're going to take for the Minnesota Vikings?
All right, so Chris, here's the deal. Okay, here's the deal. If you're not this, I'm going to take it like you and I are in it. Of course, we have to practice social distancing.
This is how we're going to do it too.
Right. So. Okay. So here it is, Chris. Here's my pick. Okay, you and I are sharing control. We're gonna take over for George Payton and Rick Spielman here, just for the time being. I'm going to tell you, I want Jalen Reagor out of TCU at 22 or 25. We have to know exactly where we think he'll go. He's going to go somewhere in the 20s, at the latest 31 to San Francisco. But I would want to go receiver with one. I love Jalen Reagor. Denzel Mims in the second round if he's there, because I love this kid. I love this kid because he's got size. And I want a defensive end. Now, defensive end's a little tricky in that area. There may or may not be that guy, but we're going to get receiver. I also like the corner from Alexander, the corner. I think was he Central Florida?
Central Florida.
Right.
We have a Central Florida guy as well.
Right. I know, but that kid is a freak with measurables and athleticism. Though I think he may not make it to 22, he may go in the teens. But the bottom line is, if you and I are running the show, Chris, we need to come out with a playmaking receiver who could run. We need a defensive end, a right defensive end opposite Danielle Hunter, and we need another cornerback. Those are the three things we absolutely have to have. Now, I know Viking fans are going to say, yeah, but what about offensive line? I get it, folks.
I was going to ask.
That's second or third round. It doesn't have to be what you're thinking.
Yeah, I love that opinion because I think the cornerback position and the wide receiver position are about as important as any for the Vikings. We had Mike Florio come on and give like.
Oh, he loves the Vikings.
He said 2 offensive linemen in the first round.
Well, here's the thing. Brian O'Neill has a chance to be a good right tackle. You could take the Riley Reif successor. I don't necessarily disagree with that. Right guard, I don't draft guards in the first round unless they're super special, like Nelson of the Colts. That I wouldn't do. I wouldn't have a problem if Riley Reif, by the way, has 2 years left on his deal. There's no guaranteed money left. If you want to draft a successor, that's what smart teams do. You always think ahead. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But for them to get where we want to get them to go to the Super Bowl, they've got to get Adam Thielen help. There's no question about it.
And the last question I have for you here, while we take up so much of your time, this is going to be a different NFL draft in a few weeks, obviously, with what is going on in this world. I mean, just give us some insight on what the front offices, you've been covering them for so long. Give us an insight about what they're going through, what they're going to have to do on draft night, being in different places, and being on a Zoom call like you and I are right now.
Or what's called Microsoft Teams, where you could put like 20 people, whatever they need. Maybe like 10. They need Rob Brzezinski. If we were the Vikings, they need Rob. They need Zim. They need George Payton. You need your doctor. You need assistant coaches, because if you need to talk to them about if something happens you weren't expecting, if a guy drops to you, a little bit later in the draft, you want to go, hey, this is where we think we're going to go. You have to have access to everyone, and you've got to be able to see them. Like I'm looking straight. My camera is right here, but you're on my right. So I could literally, during the draft, if I'm the general manager, I have to be able to navigate that, oh, by the way, what if I want to make a trade? I have to pick my phone up, okay? I have to probably have 2 phones. Oh, the other thing is you have to have a great internet connection. So your people, your IT people, Chris, are unbelievably important.
They're busy.
Yeah. Our guy Alex there, he's got to do his job for us, you know? So the bottom line is, when you look at it, these are uncharted waters. I'm going to learn more about how teams are going to do this. And the other thing is, for television, we've never had a draft like this. Like, this is I was talking to my friend Greg Cosell from the Matchup Show. Greg, I believe, they're not going to be able to go in studio, so they're going to have to do it from their homes. None of us, unless we have to go for groceries, can do anything else. Unless you want to take a walk, you can do that. So where am I doing all my phone calls and reporting and analysis and all that? I'm doing it on my computer, making calls. That's all you can do.
Absolutely. And I think it's going to be like a fantasy draft and a bunch of dads drafting from their basements, pretty much.
With their kids in the other rooms.
That's what I compare it to.
Yeah. Pretty cool. It's hopefully we never go through like this again in our country, and we hope everyone's staying safe. It's been a very tough couple weeks. Stay safe, people. Better be safe than sorry. My wife and I, Chris, we've only been out in terms of shopping once out of the last 3 weeks. We want to stay safe, and these are unprecedented times, and you just got to take care of your family.
Absolutely, and we thank you for coming on to talk about a welcome distraction, which is NFL football. I'm excited that the draft is still going on. So thanks for joining us, Adam, and we appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you.